Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
All right, back here on the Investor Coaching Show, Paul Winkler, along with Jim Wood, talking money and investing. So when we talk about investing, stock markets, sometimes optimism can change significantly with people. I am tremendously optimistic after a stock market upturn. Or let's say if the president that I like is in office, I'm tremendously optimistic. If, let's say, I have somebody's in office that I don't like, then I'm very pessimistic, or I'm looking around the world, or I'm watching too much news. I can get really pessimistic and go, oh man, the future looks so dark. Forget my sunglasses. I need a reading light because things are terrible out there. So I want to pull out. Or after market downturns, I can get really pessimistic. Or I keep hearing in the news, stock market is overheated. It's record highs. It's too high. And so what happens? Our optimism can go up and down based on the news. And you said, Jim, you were seeing something about optimism, markets, investing.
Right. And just to your point about changing optimism, there's a lot of risk tolerance questionnaires out there that'll ask you supposedly the right questions to determine how much you should invest in stocks and that type of thing, how much risk you're comfortable taking. But to your point, when markets are going up, everybody's optimistic and, hey, risk is awesome.
Right. And they teach that in all the finance schools. And I actually had a conversation with the president of one of the colleges that actually teaches a tremendous amount of the curriculum on financial planning. And I said, this is garbage. And he goes, yeah, it is. I was surprised when he said it. The risk tolerance questionnaires, that is.
Yeah, sure.
And that was the point that I made. And he goes, yeah, I agree. Yeah, people are overly optimistic after market upturns. They're overly pessimistic after market downturns. I was like, why do you guys teach this garbage then?
And so many of those questionnaires, too, are just designed to get people off the fence to where I can't make a decision. But if I take this questionnaire and I get X amount of points, it tells me the portfolio so I know what to do now.
Oh, so true. So true. It is, again, psychology. How do we get people to do what we want them to do in an industry that's driven by sales? So I agree with that. And, the thing that frustrates me is it is still a criteria. Did you bring your client through a risk tolerance? No. What I did is I made sure that through education that their risk tolerance matched what they should be doing based on their situation. So in English, what I mean by that is some people will come in and say, well, I've got this all CD portfolio, or I've got an all money market portfolio for my long-term money. And what I have to do is I've got to educate them on how inflation plays a part in this and how we have a fiat currency, the dollar, not backed by anything. And therefore, what you're doing is you're putting all your money in something and saying, well, the reason I'm putting all my money in cash is because I don't trust the government. And I go, when you pull the dollars out of your savings account, what does it say on the dollar? Backed by the good faith and credit of the United States government, right? So you're putting everything in something that's backed by the government because you don't trust the government. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you can educate people to actually be taking the proper amount of risk based on your situation. And that's my point.
So the whole idea with optimism, I started thinking about optimism years ago. There was a guy named Matt Ridley wrote a wonderful book, got a little tongue-tied there,
there you go,
called The Rational Optimist.
Yes.
And it made so much sense, such a great book, and that it's looking at the future. And this was, he probably wrote this thing over 10, if not 15, 20
gotta be. Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
And just talking about how amazing the future was likely to be.
Yeah.
And that, we have all these problems 24/7 that are thrown in our face, but look at the things that are coming. Well, there's this organization called the Rational Optimist Society. And I get a newsletter from them. It's great stuff in terms of where is innovation happening. And so I read through these newsletters and can't think but long-term being optimistic, knowing in the short term, yeah, stuff's going to happen, you know, the day-to-day stuff. But in terms of being optimistic about a long-term portfolio, which you're invested in stocks, and we say stocks. People think of, oh, well, I own these pieces of paper that are worth something. But stocks aren't that at all. Stocks are companies.
That's exactly right.
And companies are staffed by very, very often brilliant people, innovators, inventors, great managers, just, you know, smart people, and not always, but overall, their goal is to increase the earnings and grow the company.
And you know, it's funny. I said this to a guy this week, Jim, and the thing, he says, well, when I explain it to you this way, what hits your mind? He says, well, they're doing it all for themselves. They're increasing earnings all for themselves. And I said, hang on a second. You're an owner of that company. And he goes, oh, good point. No, they're doing it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is self-interested to them, sure, but that's the incentive you want because you own part of that company.
You've aligned your interests with them.
Yeah, you want everybody working for that company to be absolutely laser focused on growing that company.
Right. So when you look about optimism here, so we're looking at profits of companies, you're owning those companies, and all we're talking about here are things that give us optimism as to why those earnings are likely not only to continue to go on, but they're continue to grow in the future. And what are some of those things that people are looking at or that you should be optimistic about?
Well, that's what just the amazing innovation, marriage of technologies. And currently, the thing that's been in the news so much has been AI, right? Artificial intelligence.
That's right.
And that's driving a lot. It's not driving everything, but it's driving a lot. And so I just actually took some samples from several of these Rational Optimist newsletters to talk about stuff. So first of all, let's talk robots. Robots are cool.
Robots. So we got Rosie. Jetsons is going to be cleaning up the house before too long, right?
Well, it's funny. That's not in the robot article, but this other article that I have is a intelligent vacuum that, you know, it's kind of like the Roomba things, only this one can go around and tell you if what it's picking up is wet or dry and adjust appropriately. So, these things just keep getting better and better.
Yeah.
And time savings, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I don't have to get out the vacuum, drag it across the hallway or do that. I just have this little thing in the corner that I press a button.
Does it still get stuck under my treadmill? That's my question.
Well, I think the smarter, the more advanced these things get, I think that's less and less likely to happen.
Right.
Or even the humanoid robots.
Yeah.
You know, and there are, I think in this article, probably it gives me 10 examples of companies working on humanoid robots.
Oh, they've talked about folding clothes, making beds and all of those types of things. There is amazing technology coming out where these robots can do things that you never dreamt they would do, doing the laundry, for example. Yeah.
So here we go. Humanoid robots, Boston Dynamics, Unitree, Figure AI, Tesla, Sanctuary AI, Agility, Apptronic, Fourier, and 1X Technology. So that's 9 different companies just in this article working on these amazing looking humanoid robots. And they're, probably many of people out there have seen videos of these robots dancing, doing flips,
Absolutely.
just doing these amazing things. And then they're learning to do manufacturing and just the different uses of these robots are just, for example.
People worry that it's going to hurt their jobs. And I said, well, actually any kind of technology we've had historically for thousands of years have always created new jobs in different areas.
Exactly. And that's what they say. Just so, well, some jobs might go away, but the jobs that are created in the future and certainly getting rid of dangerous jobs, things like that. So the different jobs, some of the different jobs robots can do, medicine, operations. Somebody can be in a completely different location doing an operation.
That's right. I've talked about that before. Yeah. You can be in the best doctor for something could be in Louisville doing an operation on somebody in Nashville. And with 5G, they're able to do that because of the instantaneous movement of the implement with the doctor's movement of the hand. Yeah.
Targeted delivery of medicine. So you just have nanorobots that go in and deliver medicines right into a tumor. And all this stuff is just amazing. And
people don't think about that. That's something that's solving a problem that wasn't being solved before. It's not replacing a job. It's actually solving a problem that hadn't been solved before.
And it's going to take technical skill for people to design, create. I mean, it's just, better jobs than maybe the ones that are replacing. Now, this part's also happening, but a little scary.
Okay.
Military and law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
So how many lives, when somebody has to go in, somebody's barricaded themselves in their house with a hostage and, shooting out the windows and everything else. So it's hard to send a person in there. But you can certainly send in a robot dog, that can go in, and these things can be armed.
The Terminator.
Yeah, well, that's kind of everybody's vision, right?
Right.
That's where the robots and the AIs are going to go rogue, and then we're all done. But in terms
I didn't
of
even watch the movie, so I don't know if that's what he does. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
and but military operations and even the war in Ukraine has been probably much more potent against Russia because of things like drones, which are flying robots. So just amazing advances.
Good comes with bad, right?
There. Well, yeah. I mean, it's good if it protects our guys.
Sure, exactly.
It's bad if it puts our guys at risk.
Right.
So that's robots.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
So that's something that can actually increase productivity, increase profitability for companies in the future. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in general, make lives better. Just think of the things that they can do. And the companies, of course. Some companies, I mentioned 9 companies. Not all 9 companies are going to be trillion-dollar companies.
Well, I've seen things out there, and I've been trying to research it as much as I can. Engines that run on water. Flying planes is something I've talked an awful lot about. There are, you have these planes that are cars. And they turn into cars, back into planes, and how do we deal with that? I was actually talking to somebody this week and said, well, I don't know if that's going to work so much because of traffic control and blah, blah, blah. Now you're going to have traffic in the air. And I says, now you have different vehicles at different altitudes. As where everybody's the same altitude when you're driving on the road, you're at the same altitude. You can't go above the car. And I'd love to go above the car in front of me, but you can't do that. Whereas you have that ability. Well, who's going to control, let's say the speed that they're going at, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, would you need to? You'd probably have governors on the vehicles. And would you be worried so much about what speed that they're actually going at? Because you're not going to run into anything. And then how do you keep them from running into each other? Well, actually the vehicles talk to each other so they don't run into each other. So there are all kinds of technological
and that stuff is actually already happening. It's just not in the air. And that's actually where I'm going next with the transportation is things like...
Let's do this after the break. Okay. Let's take a quick break and talk about what's going on in other places, because this is actually being implemented in other places. So let's talk about that. You're listening to the Investor Coaching Show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Paul Winkler, Jim Wood. Hey, just a note to you podcast folks, we just came out with a retirement income guide, and I'm super excited about this. There are all kinds of myths about taking income in retirement. People worry about running out of money, and rightfully so, because a lot of these myths can actually cause that. Now, the myths that you typically hear about, number one, dividends, living off dividends in retirement, real estate, life insurance as a retirement investment, and annuities, and interest-bearing accounts, and target date funds. There are all kinds of things out there. What I want to do is put something together that walks through why those things are problematic, number one. Number two, the other thing that I wanted to do is walk through the evidence-based research on taking income in retirement. And we got a ton of data going all the way back to 1900. What's the logic behind it? And it's intensely logical. So we put that together, and all you have to do to download that, making it super simple, just go to paulwinkler.com/relax, and you can actually get into that very easily right there. So I would urge you to do that. Check it out, because I think you're going to really like it. paulwinkler.com/relax. All right, Jim, what else?
Oh, I just wanted to finish a thought I had from last segment, which was we're talking about cars and people worrying how do they notice the other cars and everything, but that's already going on today in these auto driving cars,
that's
right? The Waymos, the Teslas, things like that. That's exactly, they're already looking all over the road, and they're doing that. So there's no reason why, if they can do it on the ground, that eventually things get advanced enough to where they can do it up in the air.
That's right.
Other stuff that's coming, supersonic flight coming back. Is supersonic flight illegal for 52 years?
Get out. Really?
Yeah.
I had not heard that.
And if you think supersonic jets are cool, I'm quoting, then what about hypersonic? 5 times the speed of sound New York to Tokyo in 90 minutes.
Whoa, that's insane. I remember when the Concorde went away, I thought, oh man, what a shame.
Yeah, the Concorde was definitely cool. So just amazing stuff coming, and even things that can improve on what we're doing now. It talked about this brain healthy computer that was just taking kind of all the bad stuff out of the computer, softening it on your eyes, the way your brain works, less addictive and more useful. But it was kind of funny because it just referred to one study. They gave kids some magazines that had never really seen magazines. They had only seen iPads, and the kids were trying to scroll the magazine.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So a magazine is an iPad that doesn't work.
Oh, it's so funny. I've done stuff where I've like flipped on a screen and I go, oh no, Paul, this is not, flipping does not work.
Yeah.
That is so funny because you get into that habit and it's hard to break habits. Wow. So it sounds like the future is so bright that we ought to be wearing shades. There's a lot of great stuff going on.
Rationally optimistic.
It's rational to be optimistic. Yeah, I love that. Paul Winkler, Investor Coaching Show. Jim Wood is up in the Goodlettsville office. And check it out online, paulwinkler.com. And you can even set up 15-minute phone calls with any of the offices right there. Watch videos, podcasts, all kinds of stuff on the website. This is the Investor Coaching Show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTM. Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.